This video recording is going to serve in place of our traditional evening with grade 7 parents, as we're not allowed to do that this year, but we're going to be covering the same information that we would have been covering with you in our auditorium here at Churchill if we'd been able to invite you to be with us. So I think you'll get all of the information that you would normally get in a regular year through this presentation. First off, we'd like to acknowledge that we live, work, and learn on the traditional unceded territories of the Squamish, Tsleil-Waututh, and Musqueam nations. That's something that we're very mindful here of at Churchill, and we begin all of our meetings with that acknowledgement. And to start us off on this recording, I'd like to have our principal, Annette Vey-Chilton, say a few words to you.
Welcome, everybody. I'm excited to meet you virtually and look forward to meeting you all in person when we're able to do so. Mr. Nix put a copy of our school agenda book on my slide, and I'm really excited about the graphic on the front of this year's agenda and what it says about our school community. We are a place, a big place, but a small place. You will find your place here and you matter. We're excited for you to learn that and to find your place here in our school community. So welcome grade 8 parents, grade 8s. We really look forward to seeing you in person.
So I'll start off by going through the goals for this presentation, and there are a few. The first is to begin to establish a connection between our grade 7 students and parents and the larger Churchill Secondary community. As Ms. Vey-Chilton said, we're a big school, but in some ways we're a small community. And it's very important for us that you find your place within our community right off the bat. And this is sort of the first step in that process for you. Some of the slides in this presentation will help support the course selection process for you for next year. High school is a bit different than elementary school in that rather than being in one classroom that covers many subjects, you'll be in many classrooms which each cover one subject. And so course selection will become a big part of your future. I will say that for grade 8, a lot of it is taken care of for you. And so we ease you into the process, but we will cover some aspects of that during this presentation. I also want to highlight some of the supports and resources that are available here at Churchill Secondary and say a few words about those. And also just to begin a process where every new student starts to develop a sense of belonging at Churchill Secondary School. So parents, if you're watching this alone and you have your grade 7 student close by, you might even pause this presentation now and invite them to watch it with you. We will be having some connections with students at their schools, and we're going to try to do what we can in this strange time of social distancing to create a bond and a sense of belonging even before the students arrive here at Churchill. It is challenging given the circumstances that we're all in, but we're committed to making that sense of belonging a priority. So I'll start by just letting you know who our admin team is this year. Annette Vey-Chilton, our principal, you have just met. And I am David Nix, the vice principal, and I will be in charge of what we call our articulation process, or that process of welcoming new grade 8 students into our school this year. We have 2 other vice principals here at Churchill because we're such a big school. Denise Clark and Hillary Watt are our 2 other vice principals. They're not with us on this recording, but you'll have opportunities to meet them moving forward. To start with, just some basic facts about our school, just some little trivia about the school. Churchill opened in 1956, so it's quite an old school. It's one of the older secondary schools in Vancouver. And we have this year almost 1,984 students from a wide variety of cultures and backgrounds here at Churchill. And within that 1,984 students, we have 504 students in our French immersion program. We have 148 international students, and we have 187 students in our International Baccalaureate Diploma program. So it just starts to give you a little bit of a sense of the different components that make up our big school community here. We also have a very active and vibrant parent advisory committee, and they have done us a big favor this year of setting up a 1-hour Zoom session on January 19th at 7 p.m. for questions and answers. So one of the pieces that is missing from this presentation that you would have an opportunity to participate in if you came to an evening in our auditorium is the opportunity to ask some general questions about our school and about grade 8 life. And we wanted to still provide that opportunity. So we'll be doing that on a Zoom session on January 19th. You'll find the link to register for that session on our school website, and you do need to register in advance for that session. And if you would like to pose a question, we're looking for general questions that would be of interest to the larger community. So not questions about individual students or individual situations, but larger questions that are of interest to many people. And those questions should be submitted in advance, and there's a link on the same document that would allow you to register for the evening. There's a link for submitting those questions. And so if you find you still have things that you'd like to ask or hear about after watching this video, feel free to join us for that event. The first part of Churchill that I'd like to talk about is our student council. We have a very vibrant student council that generally organizes a lot of social events throughout the year. As you can, I'm sure, imagine, this year has been a bit of an anomaly for that. We haven't had very much in the way of social events, but our student council is still extremely active. And I would like to introduce one of our grade 8 representatives to you, Alana Gilpin. And I'm going to step away from the camera for a moment, and Alana is going to come in and say a couple of words to you.
Hi, my name is Alana Gilpin, and I am one of the grade 8 representatives at this school. This year it was especially difficult to find ways to get people involved in the school, but we have found multiple ways for you to get involved. These, whether it be clubs or maybe even student council, there is something for everyone. I hope that you enjoy your time at this school and that you will make many new friends, and that's it.
Thank you, Alana. I'm sorry that you don't get to meet Alana in person, but I really am grateful that she was able to take time out of her schedule to come in and participate in this taping. And I hope that she sets an example for your students of ways to get involved here in our community. As I'm sure you can imagine, we have many teachers at a school with 1,984 students. We have over 100 staff here at Churchill. Many teachers, many engaging courses, many inspiring staff members, and we have great strength in all of our different departments here at Churchill. We also have a very vibrant and strong counseling department here at Churchill who's very plugged into the student life of our community. Our counselors are here to support our students in many ways, and they offer confidential, personal, family, social, and academic and career counseling. And your students will travel with their counselor through the years that they're here. And I'd like to introduce to you now Miss Grace Lee, who will be the grade 8 counselor next year, and she is also going to say a few words.
Hello, future grade 8 parents. My name is Grace Lee. I will be the grade 8 counselor in September. I look forward to meeting all of you and to working with you as well as all the grade 8 students in September.
Thank you, Ms. Lee. So I just want to talk a little bit about the boundaries for Churchill Secondary. These are some maps that are produced by the Vancouver School Board that give a visual representation of the parts of Vancouver from which our students come. You can see within the red lines surrounding Churchill here that we run on sort of the south central part of Vancouver, and our students are drawn from that geographic area for our English language program. Our French immersion catchment area is significantly larger and covers really pretty much the entire south part of Vancouver, stretching all the way to Boundary Road. And so we draw our French immersion students from a much larger geographic area. So generally in grade 8, the vast majority of our students come from in-catchment. We are allotted generally an extremely small number of cross-boundary spots. And so it's not a high likelihood that a cross-boundary application would be successful. But if you would like to make one, there are 2 different processes depending on whether you're applying for the English program or the French immersion program. If you're applying for the English program cross-boundary, the applications are available online on the VSB website, and they're only available during the month of February. So they must be filled out and submitted during the month of February. If you're applying for the French immersion program, the time frame is the same. So you still have to apply during the month of February, but the application has to be paper-based. And those paper applications are available through all VSB schools. So you should be able to get one from your elementary school. And you would submit a completed Churchill application along with your cross-boundary application to our Churchill records clerk during the month of February. So again, it's all during the month of February. If it's English, it's online. If it's French immersion, it's on paper. And that cross-boundary process is managed by the Vancouver School Board, and we're given instructions on how to process those applications. And so once those applications are in place, we follow the direction that we are given from the VSB. I'd like to just go through a few dates with regards to a timeline for the next few months. On January 13th and January 15th, I will be making video presentations live to our family elementary schools. On the 13th, I think we're doing all of our English-speaking feeder schools, and on the 15th, we're doing all of our French immersion feeder schools. It will be similar to this video recording, except we're going to try to do it live and have teachers share this meeting with their classes. Normally, I would be going out to each school and meeting the kids in person, which is a really meaningful experience for me, and I think is good for the kids. Unfortunately, we obviously can't do that in this time of COVID, so we're going to try to do it in a way that still mimics a live meeting. Then the month of February, as I mentioned before, is the month during which we can accept cross-boundary applications. And just a reiteration that if you're applying cross-boundary, you need to be sure that you meet that deadline, because you won't be in the initial consideration group of cross-boundary applications if you don't get the application in during the month of February. In April, on various dates, we're going to meet with the resource teams from each of the elementary schools. So myself, our counselor, our student support service people, our ELL coordinator, and in some cases our French immersion coordinator will come to meet with the admin team and the resource teachers and the grade 7 teachers at the elementary schools. I believe this year we're probably going to do all of those meetings via Teams. I know that that's what ended up happening last year, because by April last year, we were already in a lockdown of in-person visits, and I anticipate that those meetings will all be via Teams again this year. And then in May, again, anticipating that we won't be allowed to invite 400 plus new students into our school building. Rather than giving an in-person tour of our school, we'll probably do some sort of a video virtual tour and a welcome to Churchill Secondary via Teams. And we do have some resources that we had to develop last spring in order to do that all online, and we'll be reusing some of those this year. I mentioned our ELL coordinator a moment ago, and just a word to families with ELL students, those English language learners. The assessments of those learners will be completed in February and will be assessed by Churchill teachers, who will then, in consultation with grade 7 teachers from the feeder schools, make recommendations about placement for the appropriate level for those students for September 2021. So that process will all begin in about a month and will be ongoing through the spring. We have a very strong student achievement department here at Churchill, and this department really strives to support all of our students regardless of their level of learning ability. So from the outset, we try to treat everyone as an equal part of this community and to offer support where it is needed. We're very dedicated to an inclusive education model, and so we will always strive to deliver support services in ways that empower the students, that include the students, and make them not feel differentiated or singled out. And we have, particularly at Churchill, begun to really embrace a use of universal design for learning, which is a system that helps accommodate inclusive classrooms. And we're really making great strides in that direction and have some very exciting things happening in this department, which we hope to continue in the future. So we're moving away from models that pull kids out of their inclusive settings and trying as much as possible to support kids within the classroom and then offer additional support as needed to those students who need something extra. Speaking of something extra, we have a very healthy set of extracurricular activities at Churchill under normal circumstances. We have varying degrees of this happening even during COVID. Obviously, what's happening now is not representative of a normal year at Churchill. One of those areas that is a big thing at Churchill traditionally is athletics. We usually have a lot of inter-school and intramural athletic programs running. We do have a small handful of athletic programs running now. I know we have a hockey team, and I know we have a cross-country team, and I think some of our basketball teams are playing, but obviously in a very limited way under very strict COVID protocols and nothing like what we are used to seeing. Normally at this time of year, we would be hosting our Bulldog basketball tournament for senior boys and senior girls basketball teams. It's a big, important part of athletic life here at Churchill. Obviously, that event's not happening this year. So we're really looking forward to being able to take steps to get these things happening again in the future. We've also got a very strong fine arts program here at Churchill, and all of those groups are still meeting and learning and creating art together. Unfortunately, many of the opportunities that we have to share that work with the broader community have been limited by COVID, but we're constantly looking for ways to open that up and to expand it. And there are always lots of opportunities for new grade 8 students to be involved. So really, no matter where we are in the trajectory of COVID in the fall, there'll be lots of opportunities for students to get involved in drama, in dance, in the visual arts, in music, in many different ways. Churchill's also home to a huge number of clubs and service groups. It says that we support more than 50 clubs. I would say that might be a low estimate of the number of clubs that run here at Churchill. Churchill has more clubs than any high school I have ever been associated with. And ranging from every interest you can imagine. And the clubs sometimes vary from year to year, depending on, because they're very much driven by student interest, but depending on what students are here, clubs kind of come and go at times. So there's opportunities, for instance, for students to start new clubs if there's not something already existing that they're interested in. But our Clubs Day, which is in September, and which we managed to run virtually this year, even though we couldn't run it in person, provides an opportunity for students to see what are the clubs that are already registered for the year, and provides lots of opportunities for students to find out when and how those clubs meet and to get involved with some groups. One of the questions that I really like to deal with at this traditional meeting is what you as parents can do to help with the transition of your kids to secondary school. So, you know, as you can imagine, and as probably many of you remember, that move from a single classroom and a single teacher who really knows you and who spends most of the day with you to an environment where you move around from class to class, and you know, you're seeing a teacher who has upwards of 200 students to get to know, and you only see them maybe every other day for an hour or so. It's a huge transition, and it's a huge it's a huge exciting growth opportunity for kids. It's also sometimes a bit scary, and it certainly requires different skills to make your way successfully through that model. And so some of the things that you can do as parents to really help the students make that transition successfully: number one, stay active in your child's life. Be aware of their progress, monitor how things are going. And I know that teenagers aren't necessarily always the easiest people to communicate with. And sometimes, you know, the idea of wanting to be private about what's going on starts to become a really big thing for us as we're growing older. But, you know, if there are students listening to this, help your parents help you. Be open with your parents, share what's going on. Parents, really actively ask and become involved in finding out how things are going on. And, you know, I would personally, my advice would be, you know, if you get the one word answer, push a little harder and pry a little harder and see what lies behind that. You should ensure that you know how to access MyEdBC, which is a good communication tool between our staff and families. I don't know, I have to confess that I am not super sure how involved with MyEd elementary schools are. And so some of you may have had some access to MyEd in the past. For some of you, it may be a new thing next year. We will be communicating information to you about setting up a family password. You should understand that the password that you set up on MyEd is really a family password, not a student password. So everyone in your family can use it to access the educational reports that will come out through MyEd. And teachers can use that to communicate your students' progress to you quite easily. Feel free to contact the school at any time you're concerned about your child's progress. Certainly starting with the teacher is a good way to start. If it's a different type of issue, you may want to start with a counselor or even an administrator. But we're happy to have interaction with families at any time. And also network with other parents, because you aren't the only ones going through this. And now might be a good time over the next few months to talk to the parents from your smaller elementary school community about how you might stay in touch next year to help support, you know, a group of students as they make this transition. And sometimes doing it as a community makes it a little easier than feeling like you're doing it alone. And the big item on this list for me is this: really help, oh, I see I have a typo on my slide here, but help your child develop one good friend and one thing. And what I mean by that is I like to see that everybody has at least one person that they trust, that they feel they can turn to, that they feel like they can talk to about their stresses or their joys or whatever it is. And it's helpful if that friend is also a student here at the school with them. And you know, it's lovely if we have big groups of friends, but I think most of us can remember that one person who for us was really that rock, and helping your child find that person in this new environment where they're suddenly going to be in a group of over 400 instead of a group of, maybe 60, it's not an easy task, and the students can use your help in helping find that friend. And the developing one thing, really what we have found at Churchill is our most successful students who feel the most rewarded by their experience here have found at least one thing that's really meaningful to them. It may come through a club, it may come through athletics, it may come through studying a particular subject that's of passionate interest. It may be social, but having that thing that really drives you and that you really care about, and really starts to make you feel connected to the larger community here. For me, when I was in school, that one thing was theater. I was a theater kid in high school, and I started my teaching career as a theater teacher as a result of that. So I know that's not everybody's thing, but for me, that's what it was. And I think whatever support you can give to your student to not just leave the school at 3 o'clock and go home and do homework, but to find something that really gives them life and passion, that's a big thing that you can do to support the kids. So your next step, if you're an in-catchment family, your next step is to fill out and return the registration form to your elementary school as soon as possible. And those elementary schools will then forward those registration forms to us. If you're an out-of-catchment family, please follow those VSB instructions for cross-boundary applications from the VSB website. I'm just going to talk for a minute I talked about course selection at the beginning of this presentation. I'm going to sort of end my part of this presentation by talking about what the grade 8 program looks like. So as I said, we do a lot of the work for you for grade 8. So what I'm going to say here applies specifically to the English language program. In a moment, I'm going to introduce to you Emily Kung, who is the coordinator for our French immersion program. And one of the things that I know she's going to talk about is how the grade 8 program differs slightly for the French immersion students. But if you're in our English track program, you will already automatically be signed up for 7 of your 8 courses: English, French, math, PE, science, social studies, and an applied skills class, which includes a variety of exposure to a variety of different elective subjects. The one choice that we ask you to make in the English program is a choice regarding your fine arts elective. And so you have a choice right now of 4 of those. The first choice is that you can take what we would call sort of a fine arts sampler course, which would have a bit of art, a bit of drama, a bit of music, a bit of dance, and expose you to a number of fine arts. And for many of our students, that's the choice that they make. But some of our students prefer, for instance, to sing. And so we have a choral music course that is available. It's a year-long choir course, which would fulfill that fine arts requirement. Some of our students already play an instrument or have a keen interest in beginning to play an instrument. And so we have both a band program and a strings program here. And depending on where you are in your playing ability, we have a beginning level, we have a junior level for kids who have a bit of experience, and sometimes even with our grade 8s who have a lot of experience with an instrument, they move straight on up into our intermediate level of band or strings. And so making a choice regarding an instrumental music class is also an option. So what I'm going to do here in just a moment is I'm going to end my slideshow presentation, and I'm going to begin a presentation from Ms. Kung, who is going to join us in just a second to talk a little bit about the French immersion program here at Churchill. So as I'm making this transition, if you're not a parent of a French immersion student, you can probably turn off the video now because most of what's coming won't be of interest to you. If you are a French immersion family, you should stay with us for just a moment and we'll give you some additional information. So Ms. Tung, whenever you're ready, and I'll try to follow along with you with my slides, but if I'm not going fast enough, you just ask for the next slide and I will provide that to you.
Okay, thanks, David. Bienvenue, welcome. This is the French immersion portion of our presentation. And here is a list of our team of teachers in French immersion currently. So we have Marc Bégin, he teaches science. Anne-Françoise Bourreau-Seal, she teaches French language arts. Nadia Dahl, she teaches social studies. Chelsea Eads, she teaches science. Victor Lamb teaches language arts. Lauren McLaughlin, who is currently on mat leave, she teaches language arts. Mia Mushinsky teaches social studies. And Luba Podvoyskaya, she teaches language arts. And I also teach language arts in this program. So our program, we are the largest French immersion secondary program in Vancouver. This year we have around 520 students in grades 8 to 12. And these are the mandatory courses prescribed for each of the years in the program. So in grade 8, students must take 4 classes. So the first class in our table is the French Immersion Language Arts. That is a course which covers reading, writing, listening, social studies, science, and a communications class, which is a class where students practice their speaking skills. The same thing is repeated in French in grade 9, as well as grade 10. In grade 11, there are 2 courses students must take: French Immersion Language Arts and Social Studies. And then in grade 12, there is only 1 course in the program. It's French Immersion Language Arts.
Emily.
Yes.
I'll jump in for a moment, and I was just going to point out to parents just a slight difference here. Because you have 4 French immersion classes, in addition to those 4 classes at grade 8, your student will also have English and math and PE, and that leaves only room for 1 elective. And so the French immersion students can either choose one of the fine arts electives that we just talked about, or they can choose the applied skills elective. But they have to make a choice of one or the other because that extra block is taken up by that 4th French immersion class.
Yes. Thanks, David. So, as David mentioned, there are 4 courses in the French immersion program they must take. So they need to take a social studies or sciences humaines. They need to take sciences naturelles, which is the science course, arts, art langagier, so these are the language arts courses, and a communications course. And that leaves just room for 1 of the electives in the following areas. So they can take an elective either in fine arts or applied skills, or 1 full year music class. And these are taught in English. There are opportunities. So we'll move on to frequently asked questions. There are questions that are frequently asked by parents at this time. So if you started French immersion in grade 6 as a student, will you be able to adapt to high school French immersion? So the meaning, what I understand from this question, it is you were in French immersion in grade 6, but then grade 7, for whatever reason, you were not in French immersion. So the answer to that is, well, we prefer a continuity, meaning it's really hard when a student leaves the program for even a year. They lose language skills from that absence. So we do wish to have students come in with a continuity following their elementary years. So most of our students have started French immersion in kindergarten. But if you are a late French immersion student, for example, that is different. So if you started French immersion in grade 6, that is called the early French immersion program. So you will be integrated into the grade 8 French immersion cohorts. Another question that comes up is, our family is Francophone and our child has attended a Francophone school until now. Is this the right program for us? So this is a question that gets asked by Francophone families. So we want to reiterate that Churchill offers a French immersion program. It is not a Francophone program. In our district, students come in with a wide variety of abilities. So we need to cater to ensure that everyone has an equal opportunity to start and learn in grade 8 the French language. So if you are a Francophone family, it all depends on your child. Many Francophone students might be confident speakers, but may need to work on their writing and reading skills. So we want to achieve a balance of achievement in all of the areas and not just one area. So the other question that gets asked is that can students skip a grade? So the answer to that is we do not encourage this. In fact, we have refused or not granted this option because it is important for the students who come into grade 8 to remain with their age cohort and take the full load of French immersion courses. It is also a social question. It allows them to be with their peers and gain confidence with the material that is age appropriate. What is the paperwork involved in registration for grade 8 students? So first of all, you should have 2 documents. The first one is the brochure. There's also a registration form, and it should be marked French immersion, so do make sure you have the proper registration form. And these are provided to you by your school. The registration form is expected at the end of January this month. For cross-boundary applications, your form is available at your elementary school, but it will be after February 1st. And those forms are due at the end of February, so February 28th at the latest. So what can you tell us about success in French immersion? What do you see students need to come already able to do? So students should be able to write a properly structured paragraph in French, so having a topic sentence and paying attention to form, meaning grammar and spelling. So the basics of being able to conjugate or use accurately le présent, le passé composé, imparfait, impératif, the basics, you know. The written work is produced in French at all times of the writing process. So if you notice your child struggles with this, it might be a good time to ensure they get more practice, to be reading a lot. Reading helps a lot with writing. And if you have any questions, you can address questions concerning cross-boundary applications to the school administration. They will be able to help you address those. Merci. Thanks, David.
Thank you, Emily. I'm sorry that I jumped in and stole your slide there from you. I didn't know what's coming, but we got that information twice. Thanks for joining us and helping with that. And so French immersion families and any English folks that stuck around to the end, thank you for watching this video. Hope it was helpful to you, and we look forward to meeting you in person soon.